he is risen quite a lot. But now let's get into the next game, because BBJ and the rest of Heroes Hearth are one game down in this series. They have given up first pick to choose Battleground, and they'll take us to Tomb of the Spider Queen. What are your immediate thoughts about Tomb between these two teams?
Ban Genji, ban Hanzo against ENDEMIC. Unless you're picking it up for yourself, which you don't have first pick. So we've seen Biggie on Genji as of late, and people are like, oh, maybe we can let Genji through. And Biggie gave everybody a not so subtle reminder of why you don't let Genji through, and just obliterates people. And then that warranted ban in their previous series. But Hanzo for Dansky has been quite phenomenal as well. So the Jaina pickup, we kind of expect that from both of these teams. But Genji, Hanzo, I can't imagine any of them making it through. But maybe it's time to give them some
pepper. And appropriate amounts of salt. It's very important to have the right amount of seasoning between things. You know, you don't want something to be too peppery. It's just not.
Or you're like me, you don't like any pepper. In, you know, where I'm from in Kentucky, before you even taste the food, you salt it. Salty group, those Southerners.
Yeah, unless you're talking about their tea.
Just had to go there.
I've never heard someone go off so fast in my life as when I mentioned sweet tea to Jay Howe and the lack thereof in California.
Look,
goodness.
Sweet tea is amazing, as we're going to get Rainer banned. But when you go to a restaurant and you're from the South where everything you have sweet tea, and you go to the restaurant and you ask, do you have sweet tea? And they're like, no, but there's sugar on the table. Like, that's the most insulting thing. Like, sugar does not mix into cold tea.
That was not the level of anger I saw off camera, but I think there were some choice words there that we couldn't hear.
I need my sweet tea.
Nice Hanzo ban from Heroes Hearth Esports. I would fathom that next would be Genji to follow that up. And you're right, when you talk about the backline of Big E and Dansky, the more I watch of this, the more I get some flashbacks, some flashes of Snitch and Point. They're reminding me a lot of that duo, and I am loving it.
They're working their way up, but an interesting stat coming into this weekend is that Krohn and Arthlon, since Arthlon, you know, had a little bit of a vacation during week 1, since he came back, him and Krohn are #1 and #2 in North America in kills per game. Like, that duo right there, normally you have one person that's high and the other person will, depending on how good your team is, will fall somewhere down the list. But they're literally #1 and #2 in kills per game. They had 0 kills last game, Killy. 0.
That's gonna hurt the stats. That's true.
Just a bit.
That's true. We saw an interesting predicament now for ENDEMIC, because with 2 solo laners banned, do they try to get their choice of solo laner here in this first pick, or do they get the Genji? They're happy to get Big E's Genji.
I think that's a great pickup for them. And the solo laners being banned out, Ural, Blaze, this is a map where we have seen teams go into the Sonya. People are comfortable with the Sonya. Obviously, Dahaka, Leoric comes to mind as well for those backup ones. We'll see exactly how that goes. Genji into a Leoric. I mean, Leoric doesn't necessarily shut him down. Leoric does really well against the mage-style backliners, things of that nature. So we'll see Phoenix and Johanna picked up here, trying their hand at Johanna one more time. Phoenix being picked up as that damage dealer, and Phoenix does trade out very well to a Genji.
That does leave McIntyre with bottom of the barrel, almost certainly for solo laners. They've only played 1 Tomb game in all of Phase 2. They lost it versus Team Freedom, but it is a battleground where in the past Heroes Hearth have been very comfortable. They may play Malthael here again. That's where they played versus Team Freedom, but ENDEMIC are fine to leave their solo laner up until later too. They want to make sure to get Muradin, so that they have B-Kids Muradin again, especially with Johanna already picked up by Heroes Hearth Esports, and then they'll get Malfurion.
Curious, again, with the triple ban, there's so much to consider now. ENDEMIC, maybe they ban out the Deckard in return to take Deckard away from Heroes Hearth. The stat you and I were looking at before this game, Deckard versus a Malfurion is definitely in favor of Deckard, as he wins about 62 to 63% of the games versus Malfurion compositions. So, see how that plays out if ENDEMIC wants to target that.
I think it's an excellent Jaina ban. Jaina would set up exceptionally well for a Genji with damage there. Is a great pairing with Malfurion too. Gives a lot of wave clear kill potential with the combo chain CC for ENDEMIC. Now, do ENDEMIC, they focus on Rhaegar over Deckard Cain, almost like they want to see the old man be picked here.
I don't think that's the support you want to let through most of the time.
Yeah.
But Genji does put a lot of single target threat onto Phoenix, and Ancestral is a single target support.
Deckard and Chromie. Looking at some of the win rates that we have seen, Deckard Cain plus a lot of different heroes produces very high win rates. Phoenix has a really good win rate with Deckard Cain and a terrible one against him, and this is cross-regionally, so there's a lot more data than just in North America. So they're feeling good that they have Phoenix and Deckard together now. They have Chromie as a setup too, a lot of damage possibility. And we'll see that Junkrat back again, J-How.
The Junkrat gives them the wave clear that they lack so far, because Genji, Murd, and Malfurion do not have that great a wave clear. Obviously, Dahaka will be in that solo. So Junkrat gives them the wave clear, but they've definitely got something in mind with this Junkrat in terms of the neutral compositions. You know, when we see the Phoenix and Chromie, obviously Genji getting onto either of those heroes is very difficult. Timeout post level 11, as we're going to see the Thrall again for that solo. So no Sonya involved here.
It's a hero that McIntyre feels very comfortable on. It's a well-rounded composition to put together with the Johanna, just everyone really with the amount of control there, but especially the Phoenix because of Earthquake and Purification Salvo. I doubted the Junkrat in the last game, but Dansky proved that even when he was by himself as that ranged, he was still able to do what he needed to in the comp, and now he's got Big E's Genji along with it.
You've got to start to consider options. When we saw 5 ranged assassins banned out in the first game, not as much banned out in this one, but clear focus on getting rid of things like Jaina, Raynor. Still waiting for that Asmo pick to come through. I don't know if we're going to see any Asmo anytime soon, but I imagine there's going to be at least one team that'll at least give it a shot. I don't know if it'll be in this series. Obviously high stakes. Maybe not the time to experiment just yet.
One pick that we didn't get to talk about was Dahaka. What are your thoughts in seeing him here for ENDEMIC? Because it's Tomb, it's not as big of a battleground to get something out of the global.
I think it's always going to be a solid pick. I mean, you always can get value out of the Dahaka. The wave clear is going to be there. He holds well in the solo lane. Obviously, post level 20, I think is going to be really good if you get that contagion getting onto the backliners, because that is a very stationary backline that we see between a Chromie and a Deckard. Phoenix, obviously, depending on if he can warp out in time. So you have prime targets, whether it's the backline or the front line, because Thrall, if Thrall comes in, he's still a melee assassin. He's still somewhat squishy, and when you can't cast abilities, you don't heal.
What I see when I see that Dahaka Junkrat composition is that ENDEMIC theoretically could put a lot of pressure on the bottom lane early between the two, and the wave clear of that. Force back McIntyre's Thrall, maybe draw some resources down there, and if not, do quite a bit of damage to the structures there. And then if they can get the first turn in, what we've been seeing from a lot of teams is focus back at that bottom lane and try to take out the fort early. If not that, then keep your solo laner there, rotate up and get the mid fort. But either way, just try really hard to get a fort somewhere with the first turn in, because you're not getting the same amount of experience that you would otherwise just trying to get all of the front walls.
There's a lot that they could play around, because to your point, ENDEMIC has focused rotating down to that bottom siege camp early and often to try and get that. I think the problem is with the Junkrat, obviously they might leave the Junkrat to try and maybe double soak and then rotate down, because he is a large part of their wave clear, but with Heroes Hearth having the Johanna, can you do it quick enough to make sure that you don't start to lose out in those lanes? So that will be an interesting matchup in the early part, especially because we know ENDEMIC does love that bot lane and that siege camp to get started. We oftentimes see them get that camp and then go out towards the night camp. We've seen them be punished a little bit at times in the early game for making moves like that. So maybe Heroes Hearth has some tricks up their sleeve, done their homework, knows how to respond to it, as there are definitely multiple ways when you have that much wave clear between the Phoenix and the Johanna alone.
We're still waiting for some of the players to be ready for this first game. Heroes Hearth do have a Chromie, which we haven't seen too much Heroes Hearth Chromie play so far in the phase, but it's clear the third ban is affecting what heroes come out for that team. Do you anticipate a temporal loop, given that it's versus Malfurion, there's no Blaze on the board? Or are you expecting more of a slowing sands for a lot more control? I'm
cool with a loop here. I think that's another reason why Junkrat was picked up. It's like, well, we don't have cleanse, we don't have bunker, so we need a hero that can stay way far away, drop grenades from range without the real threat, and then of course the Riptire there if you do need more of that wave clear teamfight option later. Post 13, Malfurion with Ice Block does help a lot, but Genji, if you Swift Strike in and you do not get the cooldown reduction, or you do not get a reset, you know, depending on what you pick up at 13, obviously the cooldown reduction there, then maybe you just get looped right back and you get enough priority focus. You get the root from Deckard, you throw down the scroll, you've got the root from Thrall, you've got a lot of potential from Johanna. So I think the temporal loop is very much a threat, and if you can get that deflect out early, see if Genji can actually survive.
Well, Jay-How, we know that so far for the Western Clash, we have Tempo Storm representing NA. In NA, because the Western Clash is going to be here.
Hey.
And then Team Dignitas is going to be there too from Europe. HeroesHearth, if they can win this series, they will also be joining Tempo Storm there. How do you feel like North America's chances are at this event?
Dignitas, they're tough.
Yeah.
They are super tough. I haven't really seen too many flaws with them up to this point. HeroesHearth, I think, is the clear favorite to contest for one of the top 2 spots. But Tempo Storm, they've been picking up steam as they continue to work Vin more and more into their strategies and their philosophy of play. He seems to have the potential, as there's a bug flying in my eye here. I don't know if that's on camera. But Tempo Storm, if Vin can get into that philosophy of their style and start to learn to do more and more things, then it might put enough pressure. They already know how to team fight. They already have the know how to win on the side of Tempo, and I think that our top 2 teams in North America definitely stand a shot. Method, however, since they've reformed, my goodness, are they a scary team.
Method is especially scary because they're still keeping up the same drafting techniques,
Yeah.
and yet it's still working. Like, it's pretty terrifying, but there seems to be a clear delineation between Team Dignitas and the rest of Europe. I don't think that that's as defined between the North American teams, though. HeroesHearth does has the highest team KD ratio in North America. That used to be Tempo Storm. Easily Tempo Storm was higher than everyone else, but Tempo Storm has taken a hit with trying to figure things out with Vin. Unfortunately, HeroesHearth is still pretty far behind the top 2 Korean teams and Team Dignitas, but we'll see what they can do, you know, how much time they get to practice and prepare. We know that the preparations, things like the synergies and how amazing they have been able to improve that so far.
Thing keeps coming at me. Yeah.
Do we have an Anubarak? Is there a locust swarm happening?
It feels like it hit me right in the forehead. But the point is, and it's something that it's hard to represent, but I've been looking at stats for basically 2 years now. There's never been a team that is a top 4 international team that doesn't have more than 1.5 KDA, which right now HeroesHearth is the only team in North America that does.
KD or KDA?
KD,
Okay.
and an 8.5 to 9 plus KDA. And those 2 stats, they're almost hand in hand. But those are 2 stats that have represented every top 4 team at every international event for 2 years. And right now, HeroesHearth is the only team in North America. I think Tempo Storm's sitting just below that mark,
right
that
behind.
threshold, and they're working their way up. But no team, I've been tracking this for 2 years, there's no team that's ever made it in those top 4 without having those statistics within their own region before they approach an international.
You gotta get those kills. And you gotta not die. All right, we're gonna head to a commercial while we get everything figured out. We'll be back soon with Game 2 between ENDEMIC. Hi friends, thank you so much for your patience as we resolve the issue. We are ready to get into Game 2 between ENDEMIC and HeroesHearth Esports. If you missed Game 1, you missed a good one on Sky Temple. ENDEMIC getting the win there puts them up 1-0 over HeroesHearth.
Chim of the Spider Queen, a HeroesHearth pick here on map pick as they were shut out in the kill department. With a Chromie, the kill is capable at any moment. I just wonder, they're going to be feeling the stress after that first game.
That'll be Crone playing that Chromie, giving us another Arthalon Phoenix, which has been one of his higher played heroes. Checking in with what we have at level 1, more Arsenal synergy. Especially nice as, you know, with the high mobility of both Genji and Junkrat mining himself out, can possibly get the follow-up on that long-range phase bomb to get the kill there.
Just can't imagine anybody really starting out this team fight. I mean, Biggie, yes, Genji has a lot of threat, but early game Genji kills, a level 4, it's a little bit easier. Obviously, that strike of the heart, a lot of bonus damage if you can land it. McIntyre under assault early. Just a little bit of a skirmish, letting everybody know, hey, we're back, we're fighting, and we're just going to go back to our lanes now.
But that was ENDEMIC doing something that we had talked about, which is having the favor of mid to bot rotations. We'll see how much more is devoted to that. Obviously, they want to be able to keep Muradin, Malfurion, and Genji together. So you have that follow-up damage of the Swift Strike and the follow-up roots of the Malfurion. So they're going to keep Dansky in the top lane for the moment as he clears that out, and then having to Hawk on the bottom gives you kind of that dual solo lane so that you have some freedom to do things like go take a camp or maybe look for a pick.
Well, Crowan trying to drop those bombs right now, and the aggression that you pointed out from ENDEMIC, Kelly, I absolutely love this style of play. It's something we don't get a lot of here in North America, the balance, I should say, of the macro and the aggression. That is something that Korea definitely likes to do. They fight first, macro second. Dignitas is probably one of the few teams that can effectively do both, probably as well as anybody, and ENDEMIC, they're trying their hand at a little bit of aggression. They did not make that early siege camp rotation, but they are definitely making the early camp rotation towards their knights as we see a little bit of a turn in here to start off for HeroesHearth.
Yeah, the thing is, HeroesHearth recognized that Dansky was in the top and shoved mid hard so that he had to stay there. Now the rotation to the bruisers lets HeroesHearth gain a lot of control between mid and top. This mid pushed all the way in, starting to do some damage to the structures, and when you have control of 2 lanes like that, it makes it a whole lot easier to turn in gems just a little bit at a time so that you don't get forced into a situation where you end up having to hoard a ton of those gems and then make a miracle turn in later on.
We've pointed it out at times that Tempo Storm is one of the best at just getting those micro transactions, so to speak, those micro turn-ins, I should say. And I went back and I was watching one of their replays earlier. I mean, they will literally turn in at the start of the game 2 or 3 as McIntyre trying to juke and jive there. He's going to dodge the Storm Bolt.
Oh,
Biggie goes over. He's going to try and use the deflect, and now he's stuck. He's slowed from the fort, has that Swift Strike out. Lucky trade there, but we've seen at times as another drag is going to be there. B-Kid with the stun. The root is going to be in return, but enough sustain so far. I'm just going to abandon that point, but the turn-in of 2 or 3 at a time by Tempo Storm, I think a lot of teams have to take note of.
I'll abandon all hope of being able to follow that up with something clever. But now that we're seeing ENDEMIC continue to keep pressure on this bottom lane, as we theorize with the team, Junkrat gives them more ability to do that, though they're going to lose B-Kid, which gets rid of a lot of their presence on this map. Burrow has to be used, Drag pulls back in Thrall, trading out on kills. Cure, can he survive? Had the essence, he cannot, and now Biggie makes it out with a Swift Strike as the Dragon's Eye was dropping down, but still 2 kills for 1 in favor of HeroesHearth, already doing better in the kill department than last game.
Only took 3.5 minutes, and they're going to go ahead and turn in some gems of their own. That's going to get them first Web Weaver turn in. That Night Camp didn't achieve too much in that mid lane. And HeroesHearth with this early turn-in. We'll see how much they can get done. There's not a lot of defensive tools. Obviously, Junkrat Concussion Mine is good, but in terms of that sheer damage, a lot of it is going to be on Junkrat's shoulder as Dahaka will be dealing with the bot lane. We'll see. I think this is a really good spot for HeroesHearth to be in to get a significant early lead and push, but there's going to be a stun follow-up. but that is just enough to take down the shield and no help.
The team switches so that they always have the tri-lane where the majority of HeroesHearth are, because Dansky is he's a possible kill target, but then having the tri-lane means you can look for kill targets of your own. They get the kill with fantastic synergy on Phoenix, and that should slow down a lot of what Team HeroesHearth is hoping to achieve with this turn-in. Unless they can get something else down, get more. HeroesHearth now is just hoping that they can get somewhat of a lead, but that was an earlier turn-in. ENDEMIC should have plenty of time to try to sort something out before heroics are online for HeroesHearth.
That was a pretty impactful loss there. Obviously, the new warp was used in that previous engagement, but the threat of the B-Kid, sometimes people wonder, like, why is Muradin not necessarily as high win rate as we think that he could be? And a lot of it is, I think, just the recognition of the Stormbolt alone makes it hard for certain teams to know when to follow up. And following up a tank is super important. At the competitive level, you have the priority targets, you know, and B-Kid is looking for those constantly. He's working in unison with Biggie. He's calling out the target, he's getting the stun, so you know that Stormbolt is landing, you know the priority target. I think that's the difference why we generally haven't seen Muradin at a higher win rate in your standard ladder environment, but definitely a lot more impact here at this level, as impact is Biggie is showing here with B-Kid and trying to get those follow-ups.
A duo that has stood the test of time over 2 years of play together on multiple teams. B-Kid's trying to create room because with HeroesHearth having Chromie, now slowing Sands here is especially complicated, but then Johanna too, there's just a ton of ways for them to stall turn-ins. There's ways for the other players as well. When you consider someone like Deckard Cain, and because of that, ENDEMIC have not been able to get any gems turned in. And they are really wanting to try to get that so that they don't have to deal with a possible double turn-in from HeroesHearth. But with so much vision and so much poke, unless they can get a kill, it's likely to remain that way. This could be it. Drag hits, but B-Kid takes a lot of damage. Now the root and the slowing Sands Cure can't get out of here, and he falls.
They're trading blows here, and it could go either way at any given moment, but HeroesHearth is clutching it out in these team fights thus far. They do have the race towards 10 a little bit more in their favor, also have 3 kills to 2, and denying that turn-in away from ENDEMIC. And for HeroesHearth, they actually have just enough gems currently to get another turn, and they also have level 10 picked up. See if they can get that turn-in. Arthon sitting on a couple more Ishbu as well.
I think here's where the synergy of HeroesHearth will be tested, because they have things like Blessed Shield, Earthquake, and the Purification Salvo combo, but there's also the Stay a While and Listen. So how that's set up for the team is going to be of the utmost importance for them. Now heroics available for ENDEMIC. Everything you would expect. No Twilight Dream for the setup of Dragon Blade, but there is a Riptire to try to function and do the same thing, and we've seen Biggie have some monstrous Dragon Blades in the past.
Dragon Blade has just fallen off so much due to the amount of sustain and the amount of counterplay to it. Next strike, obviously, it's been well. There's going to be the Stay a While. See if we get the Bless Shield in here for the follow-up. There's going to be a Chromie Bomb, but the Concussion Mine is down, and Dansky able to make a way before that Bless Shield could connect. Didn't even go out because he didn't have the chance.
Very necessary that he survived that. He had a lot of gems for ENDEMIC, and they are going to need those as they face another Web Weaver phase for HeroesHearth. Dansky's going to be left in the top lane as the team rotates to the mid, keeping some control over Biggie. Ishbu started to march forward like maybe he was going to try to follow that up, but ENDEMIC have done a pretty good job of trying to defend versus the secondary Web Weaver phase from HeroesHearth. HeroesHearth feels the necessity of the gems and needing to take a fort down, so they'll get more aggressive here using that Deckard Cain and the control he provides. But maybe ENDEMIC can get a kill off the back of this. It looks like no, they're just going to clear this out.
I just like the way that HeroesHearth cautiously approached that. But every time Junkrat kept showing top, they knew that there was no real imminent threat. Once bottom was pretty much dealt with, McIntyre started to rotate up to make sure there was no flank, because Daga could have brush stalkered in. Obviously, had Junkrat been able to make it down, he has Riptire. You can use that from further away. No engagement opportunity there, as we see a little bit of damage coming out here from B-Kid as he goes in, continues to stack up. 14 stacks on his level 1 quest currently.
Karen B-Kid are a lot of the front line, but the same thing could be said. We saw another Stay a While and Listen. The Dragon Blade's out. Arthalon's the target. Riptire and Dragon Blade take out 2 in the blink of an eye, disintegrating the back line of HeroesHearth.
killer combination there for ENDEMIC, and Dragon Blade again showing its value here for them, and as they pick up 2 kills, and now Web Weavers of their own. Sieging potential not extremely high with this comp, but the threat of a kill, a dive, and something that we've seen ENDEMIC starting to do, which is more of the Korean style. You get minions, you get any type of push onto that lane, then you dive directly, and they don't have Dragon Blade, they don't have Riptire to maybe necessarily do it here, but the threat of a Murd and Dwarf Toss into that Swift Strike is very much real here for ENDEMIC. And that's the positioning right there. This is full-on Korea. You don't hide in the bush, you hide in fog. And they're looking for it. They're just not able to find it yet, but it's coming.
I like that ENDEMIC is keeping Dansky with the rest of the team. Yes, he has Ripper Air, and so he has a lot more survivability, but he also has a majority of the bank of ENDEMIC right now. We're going to see a deep stalk in from Dahaka. Mine throws McIntyre back. A lot of heroic abilities burn, and that Earthquake is key in keeping McIntyre alive, as is that Stay a While and Listen. They're still heading after McIntyre.
He almost hit him with that Swift Strike. Enough to get the reset, unable to do so. Arthlon returns some damage very far forward, gets interrupted on that. There's going to be a Swift Strike. There's going to be the reset, and that is Arthlon maybe overstepping his grounds. Just a little bit of drag's going to be grabbed there. Timeout's going to be used, but I think that Chromie is on an island here.
Yeah, the Riptire separates HeroesHearth, the rest of HeroesHearth from that Chromie, who falls as the final Web Weaver does 2 for ENDEMIC. ENDEMIC has enough gems to get that next turn in, but they have their eyes set on juicier prizes.
For ENDEMIC, it's not about the siege, it's about fighting under that siege, and they accomplished a few more kills there. Now they're going to get the turn in, they're going to get the boss, and they're going to let the siege take care of itself as they continue to fight around that. They're going to try and time this as Dansky goes over to get that turn in, as he was holding on to quite a few gems. Michael Udall, he's going to get some mana to prep, and this is where ENDEMIC can really force the issue. They'll likely have another turn in shortly after this, but if they can pick up 16, they have control of this game. And HeroesHearth struggling to maintain their footing.
Jay-How, nobody's eyes are more glued to their screens right now than the team of Octalysis. After losing to ENDEMIC last weekend, it still seemed like because ENDEMIC only has HeroesHearth and Tempo Storm left, that they should be able to claim that spot. ENDEMIC had to get that win, but now ENDEMIC is out for so much more, and already having 1 game win, now a Web Weaver phase behind this boss, which has opened up this front wall. 16 rapidly approaching for ENDEMIC to get a whole lot more. And again in the lead in kills, ENDEMIC is coming in strong this weekend versus HeroesHearth.
See if we get the extra Dwarf Toss range, and for B-Kid to go in and make the plays happen. He Dwarf Tosses out, still waiting to decide on what that's going to be. Riptire is going to be there. Arthlon actually had a lot of damage from that Web Weaver. But as we've seen, B-Kid, he has been hyper-aggressive with that Dwarf Toss to get in. Cure's going to get the bot lane. The mid was dealt with that camp from HeroesHearth. But for ENDEMIC, they have a lot of gems coming into this next one. Might be able to get another turn in. They have the threat of 16 for a while before HeroesHearth picks up that crucial 16 talent tier for themselves.
It's hard because ENDEMIC desperately wanted to keep with that boss and Web Weaver phase, but at the same time, this is a tough composition to siege into. The control of Johanna Chromie and Thrall 2, if you step too far forward, the slows of that, the Stay a While and Listen, possibility of lockdown for HeroesHearth, even with 16 advantage, it's tricky for ENDEMIC, but they still have enough for a turn in. So too does HeroesHearth Esports. HeroesHearth, I don't know if they can make it through another Web Weaver phase without losing a keep. Not if ENDEMIC knows that it's their last chance to get catapults on this map versus HeroesHearth.
They have a lot of long-range poke and interrupts, and see if B-Kid tries to come in. There's going to be the stun. Stay a while and listen. In return for Arthlon. Somehow survives for now. Salvo not in time. It's a 1-for-1 trade so far. We see a lot of heals coming out, but the Riptire is going to split that of HeroesHearth as they're trying to desperately hold on to this fight.
McIntyre is just getting... he's having a difficult time versus Cure and that Dahaka, because between the isolations and the drags, yes, he is able to drop down his Earthquake, which provides a lot of point and zone control to his team, but he can't get the rest of his abilities out, which means he's just not getting the same kind of self-sustain that you would expect from a Thrall. It's very well done by Cure to keep that his his eyes set on this Thrall, and this might be enough. It was a trade as Biggie went down, but Cure is hoping that he can get these gems in. He has a lot of the gems.
Ishbu's got to be careful because now he's stuck. The body block is going to be there. The roots are going to fall up. He's holding on to a lot of gems. Ishbu has fallen. They try to get 1 too many interrupts. That is 54 gems.
My.
This is a catastrophic loss as Cure is going to make it even more painful as BBJ is going to be the next to fall after that drag. ENDEMIC goes from winning this game to dominating this game right now, and they are making so many plays with those 2 kills. Now they can fall back, get camps, find other ways to get pressure on this map, and they didn't accomplish keeps before, but rest assured they will definitely be looking for keeps now.
Last weekend, I was the first to say I didn't feel like ENDEMIC's Dahaka was necessarily that impactful, but Cure is putting on a show with this Dahaka play, and when you land skill shots the way that he is, it makes a whole lot of sense now. Not only web weavers, but the camp in the mid. ENDEMIC are a far cry out from 20, still a level and a half, but should they be able to get some structures down, they can get there, clear out these waves, that's going to get them even closer too. We might be looking at them trying to make the final push and go up 2-0 over HeroesHearth.
Well, that mid lane is being prioritized by HeroesHearth, and I think they might have to concede this top keep. I just don't see that withstanding the punishment and the push that's about to come in. They're going to rotate up. The Web Weaver's just about here. They need to get these down before the Web Weaver starts that targeting phase with the purple stuff that comes out, whatever we call that. But they have a lot of damage coming in. The Riptire being slowed down and cleared up. This keep needs to fall.
It does. It absolutely has to fall. Michael Udall takes a lot of damage. Big E is there. They didn't get the keep. Now Big E in trouble. B-Kid needs to come in for the peel for him. Nature's cured too. McIntyre comes around from the side, and that may be all she wrote as he finds Genji and takes him down. Still no 24 ENDEMIC. They're keeping Cure in the mid, and the other fort went down, but that keep not falling is a problem for ENDEMIC.
I feel that had to have been something of a 5-man push, prep the bot lane, then push top lane, confirm, and deal something else. They use the global to push in the bot lane, push in the mid, so now they don't get any keeps. They suffer the loss of their Genji. HeroesHearth, they did lose a lot of gems when Johanna fell previously, so they're only sitting on 42, and now it looks like they're going to try and just force boss, force the action with no Genji. They're coming in.
Tenuous position for both of these teams. ENDEMIC ideally wants to get that keep, checking in HeroesHearth in this boss pit, and with things like Earthquake, Stay a While, which aren't down, they were used. ENDEMIC instead goes to steal this. They still have a fort in the top lane. They can deal with that boss, and now they have 20. Now things get a lot better for them for a couple of levels because they have Storm talents well in advance of HeroesHearth.
I'm surprised they didn't make that rotation earlier. Even if they know that they're on the boss, they could have grabbed that camp and then threatened mid-keep pressure and would have had an easier and quicker rotation. They still made the right call by rotating to another lane and forcing out a response from HeroesHearth. The boss takes off a potential win condition away from ENDEMIC with a threat of 20. So HeroesHearth, they made a good counter call. It doesn't really accomplish much. It does give them the fort some experience, but it's more of a denial from the level 20 ENDEMIC, which was right around the corner for them. So a lot of counterplays being made here by both teams. And HeroesHearth, with that gem pickup, now have enough for a turn-in, see if they can find their way forward, because that's going to be tough.
Yeah, it was an excellent call from HeroesHearth. It keeps them in this game. They need 20 to truly feel safe. The biggest boon for them not having that keep lost in the top lane. They hear the stalk. They back on out. ENDEMIC's going to hold the position around these turn-in points for as long as they can, as long as they have that advantage, in hopes that they can use that 20 to win a fight, get a pick, get enough, and then finish what they started up at the top.
That keep has 2,100 health on it. And at this level, that is very quick to take down. You got to think, catapults on this map do so well to defend against web weavers, and we have extra time traps at 20, so B-Kid's gonna just casually walk into several. I can guarantee you that much for every time he chooses to engage. When we look at the mini-map, Genji was pushing out those siege giants, and yeah, ENDEMIC now has just enough gems for another turn-in.
Yeah, it was a great rotation to focus on getting those giants with the 20, because eventually someone would have to show up there from HeroesHearth. HeroesHearth did not want to lose in a fight, not when they have a keep that low, and when 20 was there for ENDEMIC. But McIntyre might have been caught before he could get back in. The team of ENDEMIC is somewhat separated as the rest funnel in. B-Kid in danger. will be hit by the salvo, but had the Avatar healing, and with the Tranquility, they can start healing up with Web Weavers coming in.
Nobody prepped that top lane, so those Web Weavers are spawning halfway across the map. They might inevitably make their way to that top keep, but now the pressure has to be applied here to the bot lane. Phoenix is already dealing with mid, and there's enough counter damage from HeroesHearth to hold this. If ENDEMIC does not get a single keep off of this, I feel it's a major misplay. It really is, as Chromie continues to rain down bombs, the keep wall about to fall, but there's no threat whatsoever.
They maybe can try to stay around until that Web Weaver does get to top and someone is forced to go there, but with time traps, the Andorhal anomaly, and the sheer amount of control that HeroesHearth has, like we said before, it's tough, but Kira trying to make the plays for the team. This is 20 indestructibles here for Ishbu. It allows the team to put some damage on it. Phoenix is seen in the top. This is the moment if ENDEMIC are going to get a keep.
That's insane. ENDEMIC now is a long ways away from another turn-in, and without catapults to deny Web Weaver pressure, should you give up a turn-in at this point, it means that you have to win from a team fight. You have to win from team fights. The boss still a couple minutes away before that respawns. So the only win condition you have is a team fight, which you could argue it has been in their favor up until this point. Ishbu and team, they're looking to see if they can turn it around. Kira, he's on an island. They left him all alone for now.
Isolation missed. He's burrowed. The rest of the team needs to come in. They have Tranquility over the wall. He's going to drag in the salvo. It's just not enough. But if they can get this kill, they do. They take out Deckard Cain. Biggie coming in big for this team, trying to trade out kills.
Ishbu should still have his indestructible should he fall, and I think that's thwarting a lot of the assault there. Biggie just sidestepped some of that damage, and he didn't know if any more was coming, so he's swift struck out of there. So trading out your Dahaka for a support on the other side means that you still have control on this battleground.
And we're seeing ENDEMIC have potential trouble trying to figure out what can they do with that, because like you had talked about, they are a far cry from any Web Weavers. In fact, they probably are not going to be able to get to that point unless we're going super late on Tomb. A 70 turn-in is not something that you see quite too often. There are some camps out. Junkrat will get that. The team postures around the turn-in so that HeroesHearth doesn't sneak one up on them.
Boss should be spawning in a few seconds as well, so that is now a win condition for both sides. It's just a matter of Chromie has had excellent vision control in key points using that level 1 talent, and the boss is now spawned. For ENDEMIC, they have plenty of grenades they can toss from range.
Wait.
To keep an eye on that.
Wait.
Ishbu?
Wait.
Speaking of grenades at long range, that one just missed out. You need to put some English on that one.
Wasn't enough for Web Weavers, but it is super nice to get gems off of your Johanna, off your frontliners. They can zone for the other heroes a lot easier. Granted, HeroesHearth has quite a lot of gems still left at their disposal.
Here we go. B-Kid, the target, he's the focus, has to dwarf toss out. Should have that second win, proccing soon. Cure, however, he's going to have to use his essence. That's going to keep him alive. B-Kid trying to get that healing static value. Salvo comes out. ENDEMIC, they're holding strong. Look for Biggie. Here comes the Dragon Blade.
Right after the contagion, too. Stay a while and listen's going to lock him down. The team looking for that kill. Ishbu way up in front, still has indestructible if necessary, and Biggie doing his best to proc that. But with the amount of damage that B-Kid and Kira took early in that fight, they just couldn't really hang around. They couldn't get the same kind of lockdown for the follow-up of that Biggie Genji, and they'll have to back off, giving time for HeroesHearth to turn in gems and get another Web Weaver phase.
HeroesHearth trying to clear up these lanes as fast as possible. They split out. Remember, the Web Weavers spawn as far up as your minion wave, which is why we saw Junkrat go to that top lane to clear. They're trying to minimize as much damage as they can. 23-minute Web Weavers are very strong. You cannot leave them in the lane the same way that we saw HeroesHearth able to do earlier in the game. These will start to push down keeps. And now HeroesHearth, they've pushed out the mid lane. They have top lane fairly well pushed out. See if HeroesHearth can find themselves a keep at this point of the game, and if not, another kill or two could result in game as HeroesHearth moving their way down the mid lane.
How insane would it be if HeroesHearth, after dealing with so much siege from ENDEMIC, gets the first keep of the game? But that's what they've set their sights on. Bottom still a long way from doing any keep damage. Okay to give up the fort there. Riptire comes through. Half of the Web Weaver gone. Is ENDEMIC still trying to posture in a way so they can take out the rest of this? Tahaka clearing top. Ishbu forward. They're ready for the fight. And it looks like Arthalon's the target.
He does get knocked away, though, in time. Cure's going to eat a lot of damage as Krohn continuing to drop bombs. See if they have any follow-up. Tranquility out. Arthalon still looking for targets. Look at Biggie. There's going to be the silence coming in. Biggie comes in.
Yeah,
here's the Swift Strike. Arthalon's going to be there. We'll have that unconquered if it does come into play.
Exactly.
They're trying to get the trade-off here as Cure on one side, Biggie on the other. The fight rages on.
Biggie was so separated from the rest of the team, hoping that he could get that kill on Arthalon, but the rest of the team was focusing on Krohn, and Biggie goes down as a result. Dansky did proc the Unconquered Spirit, but Arthalon has the potions, has the heals to make this happen where he can start to heal back up. Same with Krohn. They're going to start to heal back up after that fight, after Biggie tried to go in and make the play for the team as he's done before. Now with the Dragon's Eye damage that was done, this keep should be it, should go down, and HeroesHearth can get some catapults.
That bottom Web Weaver phase went through a fort and went through an entire keep. That's how I said it, 23 minutes in, they cannot be left alone. So you go from salvaging basically everything to inevitably giving up double keeps, and now another turn in here for HeroesHearth in double catapult lanes at 25 minutes in. I don't know how ENDEMIC holds on without taking a team fight. The Unconquered Spirit was procced, so that focused target can be onto Phoenix this time, knowing that you can get that takedown, but it is desperate times here for ENDEMIC.
Well, desperate times call for desperate measures. No Dragon Blade for 30 seconds. I feel like if ENDEMIC is going to make their way out of this, they have to be more concerted in who they're focusing and targeting. It's hard with Unconquered Spirit, hard with Timeout too. Now with Unconquered Spirit being down, potentially that could be where they find their answer. Maybe on someone like Thrall, but now that he has Wind Rush, it's a lot harder. Arthalon, again the target with a Riptire Stormbolt follow-up. Can they get it? They do. They take out Phoenix, but Stay a While is going to lock him down.
It locks down multiple members, and I'm pretty sure Biggie didn't get the reset. There was a little bit late. See if they can take Ishbu down. Should have the Indestructible, but the amount of healing there from BBJ is keeping everybody alive. They're holding on to the point. The Web Weaver's onto the cores. The shields have fallen, and ENDEMIC desperately trying to hold on. The mid has been cleared. They're dealing with the bottom. The top will have pressure, but they are trying to take this fight to him as the Dragon has become Biggie.
He's slashing at BBJ, throws him clear back away. Web Weavers, though, take out that final keep. Dansky left in the core to try to defend it versus all of the minion pressure, while the rest of the team tries to win this game if they can. They just cannot get Ishbu down. They'll get one more shot as Cure tries to drag him in. The team jumps back forward. Now Indestructible finally procced. They have to keep on him, though, for those few seconds until it's done. That healing! My goodness! You wonder why he has the win rate he does. There's your answer.
Baby.
But he's separated from Thrall, and ENDEMIC finds a place.
Look, I think now, I don't even know if Web Weavers are enough. They don't even have enough for turn-in. I think their win condition, I think at this point, is box. They have to clear these lanes up. Thrall's still a ways away. See if they can bait this out a little bit. Arthalon, they're scouting for now. Unless they're threatening backdoor.
Oh, but that'll...
They've got vision on boss.
HeroesHearth is just going to try to do the same, though.
Backdoor, here we go. Let's see, does ENDEMIC recognize this? Because all of HeroesHearth are here. They are hearthing back. Riptire's going to buy a little bit of time. Krohn and Team Arthalon is the primary target here as the grenades are coming out. See if they can find their way onto it. Kira's coming in the backside. Stay a while and listen. Going to buy a little bit of time, but look for B-Kid to jump in.
He'll come out of that taking a nap. Purification Salvo is out. Kira survived, but... if they can't get more, if ENDEMIC cannot get more kills, they must get this. They have to do something else because they have been pulled off of the boss. Ishbu draws the rest of the team away.
Catapults.
A staggered death hit. Catapults from the core, it's 40%. And continuing to fall before ENDEMIC can bring Dansky back. And this is the problem with late game losing all of your keeps.
It's like 5.5, 6, so 5 one time, 6 another. It is just an insane amount of damage. This right here, this camp buys you relief in the mid lane. You still have to get turn in. It's going to be neutralized here by HeroesHearth, but the catapults are so insanely strong, and at 35%, Web Weaver turn in. Dansky
had to turn in, and he's the main person watching the core now. Biggie has to go back because bottom lane's problematic. Phoenix is just pushing that lane back out. HeroesHearth has a lot of different options here. It's by no means over, but it's such a tough place to come back from. This is such a hard comeback for ENDEMIC right now.
Earthquake has been used. Isolation has been procced. There's going to be the stun. There's going to be the follow-up. And before they can save him, the kill comes through. That's going to be McIntyre falling. The return damage. Biggie able to make his way out as he swift strikes out. The catapults are on court again here momentarily, which is why we see Dansky hopping back. The gem holder, as you had mentioned just a moment ago, is the best wave clear here, as he is just stacked on set. By the way, he finished his level 4, by the way, at this point of the game. So those things are wrecking anything and everything in their path.
This pressure is unrelenting. With a global and a Junkrat with Ripper Air, it's still hard for ENDEMIC to stop this. They go out, they get 1 kill, they come back.
I think the one thing that people have to realize is that catapults at this point of the game win versus web weavers. They will clear them out and push lane right after. And that's the threat that ENDEMIC has to deal with right now, is they have to push these lanes out and prioritize one lane. They don't have that camp pushing mid, and bot lane is going to have to be dealt with.
Yes, they want to get top, but at some point someone's going to have to go back with bot. So this is a time bomb now against ENDEMIC, but they are so desperate to alleviate some of this pressure, and that top lane is the closest thing to a keep down, so that's where they want to make a stand.
They're feigning backdoor because they don't have eyes on HeroesHearth, and they know that if they try to get the backdoor, or they've sent Dahaka back, that will deal with the bot lane. As you can just see, that bottom right of your screen, that icon, it represents the web weaver already at half health this early in ENDEMIC. This is their home run play. Mid is fine. Bottom is dealt with. They have to end game here. All members are showing here for HeroesHearth. ENDEMIC, they're coming in.
He's stalking in. 31 minutes on Tomb of the Spider Queen. ENDEMIC, it is all or nothing on this play right here, right now. And HeroesHearth hopes to hold and tie this series. They go in. Dansky is the target, healing back up. Takes him out of Tranquility for a second, but he survives.
He's alive for now. The web weaver onto the core. Stay a while and listen. Locking down 3 members. McIntyre and team, they're trying to get in there. Ishbu comes in. 3-person condemn. Everybody being locked down, but all the damage is missing so far. And ENDEMIC, they're starting to retreat. They're not ending right now. Cure taking a lot of damage. They're falling back.
Cure had to use Burrow slowing sands, but now they have had enough as Biggie goes back in. They've drawn out all of HeroesHearth. One team, one side of the team focuses on Ishbu proccing the indestructible while Biggie handles the rest. Ishbu barely makes it out alive, but Biggie is not done yet. He becomes the dragon and he takes down one, but Murnin falls. So does Genji. HeroesHearth is holding.
They're holding for now. Cure's going to miss the drag. He goes in. He's going to burrow under for the moment. Doesn't have another drag for a moment. Tranquility out again, but the big bomb is coming in as we see the dragon coming down on the other side. As Crowan dropping those bombs might be enough. Arthlon very far forward trying to trade out here. And with 4 members down on the side of ENDEMIC, it looks like HeroesHearth has survived and will be looking to even this game up.
Dansky did his darndest to take down Arthlon in the process, and that would have been a heck of a kill to get as HeroesHearth tried to move toward core. But even still, HeroesHearth defends at their keep versus what really had to be a miracle play from ENDEMIC, giving us a tied series on our hands after 33 minutes of play on Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Yeah, I can tell you, 35%. You got 10 seconds before a few members come back, but this core is going to fall so fast that it does not matter, as they do get the Junkrat kill at the end of this. And 33 minutes in, finally ends this game. That was a back and forth, and ENDEMIC, that top keep, Gilly.
Problems.
Woo! Had they taken that down, that is a very different game. Very different game. But instead, they fought hard and they defended very well. But the catapults, that damage, my goodness.
The numbers are quite high.
431,000 siege damage for Junkrat. That's enough for like an entire series, maybe 2.
When it's coming at you, you've got the cannonball. Let's go. No, that was, we talked about how hard it is to siege into the composition of HeroesHearth, and not being able to get the keep was such a difficult point. It felt like the focus on bottom lane, you know, had that gone any differently, they had put so much into that top lane earlier, but didn't have Dahaka with them, and then ended up in a weird position where they wanted to siege, where they happened to be maybe hoping that that top lane would just naturally push, and then they get a double keep anyway, but the defense was just far too good for HeroesHearth.
It's a miscalculation, and I think it's forgivable. Obviously, they wish they could have that moment back, but not bringing the Dahaka up for that push, it's more of a safer play to guarantee it as opposed to a necessary play, and I think that's where the decision-making came in, is they thought that it would get it down, but not having that, not defending against those web weavers, you can leave catapult lanes to just defend web weavers when you get later into the game, and then you would have only had to defend the mid and bot. Instead, they had pressure in all 3 lanes. They were prioritizing cleaning up that top lane. If we go back in time there, they had to clear that out in order to relieve that pressure, but the amount of damage that came out from those lanes and that web weaver push was just far too much to overcome.
Well, a tied series on our hands as HeroesHearth finds their footing in this series. We'll be back with more HGC after this.